Okay, I'm ready. Sit your little gluteus muscles down. Okay, thank you. Hi. How's everyone? Good? Anybody who's not good? There's the door. Actually have a couple of doors. Anyone here for the first time? Welcome. Are you the only one? Oh, okay, two. Hi. Welcome. Welcome to welcome. Welcome to welcome. I'm Dr. Maria. The rest of my name is hard to say, so that's why they call me by that. And whatever you'd like to call me, it doesn't matter. Don't call me. Thank you all for being here. The wonderful tech crew, Jason and Mike, I think he's over there, and Kathy and Diane and Mary and Christine and Natalia, who is not here. She's somewhere floating on a boat somewhere in the Caribbean or something, or Mexico. I don't know where she is, right? Anyhow, she'll come back, but she helped me with the slides because it gets a little busy, and I can't really do all these things at once because it really gets busy, if you know what I mean. Anyhow, turn what on? This. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of fumbling here. I'm technologically retarded. Okay, can't do it. Got it. Okay, so we're all here today to talk about one of the most exciting topics of the day. Bacteria, fungi, viruses, and other animals that are evolving, creatures that are evolving. So how many of you here know how many pounds of microbes we carry in our body at any given time? Big question. A lot. Not a clue. I love these answers. Anybody can come up with a number. Okay, how many pounds? I didn't ask how many just yet. We'll get there. 3 pounds. Good answer. Really, is that just a wild guess? Wow, but that's good. You get, a prize. We'll give you some bacteria. I'll put all of my stuff on you shortly. That'll be the best gift you get because these are little creatures that we need to learn more about, and to respect with the utmost. Because these are the animals that are hosting us, the creatures that are hosting us, if you want to call them animals, animalcules. They used to be called animalcules. Did you know that? Dr. Leeuwenhoek, way back in the day, who invented the microscope, he saw these little things underneath the slides, and they said, oh, look at the little animalcules. So they basically were cells and things like that. Not that he may have identified every bacteria. He wasn't ready to identify all these things. But we have these creatures which are pretty much like all over us, every single second and microsecond of the day, in our air, on our floors, in the water, just about everywhere. They're ubiquitous. We call this ubiquity. There is just nowhere you're going to escape from these animalcules, these bacteria, fungi, viruses. They're all over the place. And we are being helped by them. I know that sounds weird. Hi. I love it. They're getting younger and younger. So they are doing us a favor. And in return, we're doing them a favor if we're doing the right thing. If we're doing the right thing. We don't want to do the wrong thing, which we tend to do most of the time. So we're all guilty of harming these little creatures, which then get very angry with us and become tough. And they become resistant to any sort of eradication. We don't want to harm these creatures. I know you don't like bugs, you don't like roaches, you don't like all these mosquitoes and no-see-ums, But too bad. They're here to stay, and they will stay beyond you and I. They're going to be here forever. So the microbiome is a nice term or a nice word for that which is all-encompassing in the realm of our bodily creatures. So every bacteria, virus, fungus is all included in that. We sometimes separate it out into the microbiome, which generally refers to the bacteria, and then there's a virome, then there's a fungome. It gets a little too complicated. We don't need to get crazy with the wording. So let's just go right to microbiome. And this is what I'll try to cover in the next hour and a half or so. And as we go along, if you have any questions, if you have a burning question, you can ask. If I asked you to ask me, then go right ahead, but try to save things for later. Okay, so what is it? All right. So as I said, we have microbes all over the place. Everywhere, no matter what you do to wash them away and wish them away, they're always there. You can use soaps, you can use some of the most toxic agents, and they're still going to be around. It's best not to try too hard. It's best to have these little creatures really around you. And again, when you're doing the right thing, that is, you're living well, you're eating well, drinking well, thinking nice thoughts, staying out of trouble in every sense of the word, your microbiome is generally a happy organ. We actually call it an organ. So how many of you have played in the dirt as children? That's, yeah, all of you, right? Anybody here who's like live in a sterile house where couldn't go in the dirt, couldn't play in the dirt? No, I mean, that's where we as children belong, in the dirt. And we still do. We still do. Should never stop being in the dirt. We have gardens, we have lawns, we have this, that. We should be in touch with them all the time. All the time. If you live in an urban area where there's really not much dirt, there's a lot of dirt in the air, but dirt that will be full of microbes that are very good for us, well, that's not where you're going to find them generally in an urban area. So that's why people in urban areas are trying to bring up community gardens and really foster that whole thing of let's bring the soils in and let's do what we can. Like in New York City, you have gardens on top of crazy buildings. And then there's hydroponics and people pulling things in their apartments and so forth. So efforts are being made, and that's great, and that's the way it should be. But too much urbanization has led to a lot of trouble, and the bacteria, the viruses, and everything, they kind of get mad, and they start mutating and doing things that we don't want. Or humans are mutating them, and that's not good at all. So we have the micro meaning small, biome meaning living, something living, and we have a very good relationship with these little creatures, generally. They, like I said, are hosting us because the amount of microbes, you said it, Jim? How many? 100 trillion, approximately. That's 10 to the, 18th power. What is it? 18th power? Math, I'm not good at math. Anyhow, so we have this, and we have really what's called a symbiotic relationship with these little creatures. They do good for us, we do good for them. We feed them, and they take care of us. They make vitamins, they make all kinds of interesting fatty acids, and they protect us, they keep our immune system up. So really, we can't live without them. So anyhow, as I said, consider it a supporting organ in and of itself. We have about 3 pounds on average in the body. 3 pounds is 3 pounds. Lift, a heavy pot, it's 3 pounds, or anything that, that little darling of yours is how many pounds? 20, no, doesn't count here. We need something smaller. So maybe you have a little dog, 3 pounds, but that's about the total cumulative mass of these creatures, which are mainly inhabiting the large intestine. This large intestine, which is 25 feet long. I'm sorry, the whole thing is 25 feet long. The intestines are 25 feet in their entirety. That's the small and large combined. But in the large bowel or large intestine, there's 5 feet worth of intestine. And within that structure, there's more than 2 pounds of bacteria. Right? And the rest is distributed through and through everywhere, all around your eyes, ears, nose, throat, all over your skin, your genitals, everywhere. Okay, and each person has their own unique microbiome. Well, where does it start? It starts when we come through the wonderful birth canal. That little baby is 3 months, 2 months? 6 months. Oh, I'm losing it. I used to be good at that. Okay, hi. So when they come through the birth canal, babies are sterile, considered sterile within the amniotic fluid, within the wonderful water sac in the mom's uterus. And then it's open, and the microbiota of mommy is now going to come all around that little baby. And that little baby coming through the birth canal is going to pick up mommy's microbiota. The microbiota is the sum total, the organisms, it's like the organisms, the microbiota, which then contribute to the microbiome, which is the whole thing. All around, it's the biota, technically speaking, the organisms. So the babe picks up that, and then goes right to the breast, and then there's more skin besides the vaginal canal. Now we have the skin of mommy that has more bacteria, and then there's, the baby's nursing and picking up bacteria from that. Not so much the milk. The milk, again, it's quasi-sterile. It's like there's some organisms, but they're all very good things in there. But it's not loaded with organism, not the milk. But as everything is coming out, it's picking up all the skin organisms, and that is taken on by the little baby. And so each and every one of us start out with our mom's microbiota, becomes our microbiome. And then it changes as days go on and on and on. It takes about 2 years for us to have our fully mature microbiome. All right, so all the crawling, and we're all over the floor, we're putting things in the mouth. Every bit of us, as little ones, little crawlers on the ground, we're picking up everything. And better that we do, because that's the beginning of our immunity. Our immunity is building along with mother's milk. The combination, perfect setup. So moms who did not breastfeed or could not breastfeed, they're not able to give the antibodies and passively give that immunity to the baby, so baby's at somewhat of a disadvantage. Other thing, if mother had a C-section or more than one C-section, you're totally bypassing the vaginal canal, and the microbiota are not being transferred. So if anyone is the product of a C-section, or had to have a C-section, again, these things they're for whatever reason are done, there is a disadvantage. And so that's not to say one can't build their immune system and their microbiome to the best of their ability, but again, knowing it early on, like a mother, unless she's told by the obstetrician and the pediatrician, you need to build that kid's microbiome, she may not know. And if she doesn't breastfeed, that's another disadvantage, you understand? So people who have allergies as little children and or as they grow, they become sensitive to everything. They get infections very easily. These are the children that generally have had, are coming from C-sections. Anyone who's not been nursed, that's another problem. And what is the third problem that's contributing to all these things? Anybody take a wild guess? Vaccines. vaccines. Okay, we're knowing far too much now about that. COVID opened that whole door. Vaccines have created allergies, food sensitivities, diabetes, and various other conditions. It's a whole condition, that's a whole category of discussion, vaccines, that I'm not going to do right now, but that maybe for a future date. But we need to be exposed to, one, at birth, mother, and all that mother can give. Now again, a baby who's around its mother all the time, of course, is going to pick up her all her flora and start to build, but starts out at a disadvantage if there are those things that I've just mentioned. Okay. So again, I've mentioned these things before, microbiota, either the organisms, and the community of all of them is the microbiome. And we have some designations here. I just wanted to familiarize you with them, in case you are interested. So we have like these classes of bacteria, Bacteroides, Firmicutes, Actinobacter, Proteobacteria, and Microbiome. So that's all kind of, cumbersome, but these are mainly what we carry. They're in different categories. And 90% of the microbiota belong to these two categories. Okay, just FYI. And they are anaerobic. So they don't need oxygen. They're anaerobes. So they can live in an environment that doesn't have oxygen. They don't need it at all. So they can live in dark places, smothered by all kinds of stuff in there. They're cool, and they're alive. So as I said, the gut has a lot of bacteria. The greatest number are in the gut. And we have, as humans, human cells, 37 trillion. So as you can see, microbiome outnumbers us. So the bacteria, viruses, and all that, they outnumber us. That's just the way it is. And we're being hosted by them. So let me ask you, how many of you know what symbiosis is or know some examples of symbiotic relationships? Do you know what it is? No. Symbiosis is where there are generally two people or two organisms or a person and an organism that are both benefiting from whatever each is doing to each other. Does that give you any hints? Okay, think about the field. Let me give you a hint, and then you may be able to get this. You're looking at a cow field. What do you see in that cow field usually, oftentimes? You see cows, yeah, and what else? Yeah, I'm sorry? Manure. Okay, yeah. Birds, there you go, you were on it. All right, so what do you generally see these birds doing? Pecking. Okay. Look, you're going to get the gold prize tonight. That's it. Yeah, you got it, Jim. You got it. So these birds are sitting, generally those white birds, sitting on the cows, pecking and eating fleas. And the cow is getting groomed, and they are getting nourished. How about that, right? So it's just a simple example. So symbiosis. Both parties are benefiting. There are many kind of relationships, and there's competitive symbiosis and there's parasitic symbiosis, but there's a lot of different things that go on as far as relationships. Like one parasitic, it would be like a little parasite eating away at you, and they're having a ball, but you're falling apart. Parasites. So you don't want that relationship, but that can happen, and that does happen. We have parasites in our bodies, right? But I'm not really talking about the parasites right now. Those are the kind of invaders, like you eat bad fish or raw fish, which I don't recommend. Do veggie sushi. Don't do fish sushi, unless it's cooked. So, so we have symbiosis, right? Okay. So like here, this fish is hanging on this turtle and is kind of getting a ride. Maybe it's sleeping, it's tired, whatever. The turtle just keeps going, or it's sort of a protective place for him, and that's, they're having a good time. Nobody's hurting, nobody's hurting anybody else. Okay. So we have these little fun things. You've heard of these bacteria, probably, on your little bottles of probiotics, right? So we'll get to the probiotics. Yeah, it's part of this. So lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, acidophilus, and clostridia. These are all in our gut. And they help digest starches and sugars and all kinds of things. Bifidobacterium is very, very important. And if you have a probiotic, which I'll talk to you about in a bit, that does not have bifido, you really need to have bifidobacterium. They found that people who had either COVID or the COVID vaccines, the stool samples had 0 bifidobacterium, which are very protective, and they need to be in our bodies. So somehow they were wiped out, or they were wiped out by something COVID-related. So we need bifidobacteria, and some really outstanding gastroenterologists did a stool study on all of these people and did an amazing reports on the fact that bifidobacteria, which we need to protect our immune system, was wiped out of these victims. So please keep bifidobacteria in mind. And then we have Clostridium in the Firmicutes phyla. We have a lot of them. And you may have heard of C. difficile. Anybody here ever suffer with C. difficile? Yeah, you know what that is, right? Okay, so it's a toxin that comes from the Clostridia. It should not be secreted. It should not be coming out. But if somebody is overdosed on antibiotics, that toxin is released. And whoa, we're talking about diarrhea that is unrelenting and that can kill you if it's not treated. So antibiotics, we've got to be really, really careful with those things. So anyhow, so these bacteria, the Clostridia, they are taking in all these prebiotics, right? If you eat these, flax, garlic, onions, and things like that, asparagus, you are doing yourself good. You're doing them good, which is doing you good. So by taking those things in, they digest them for you, because a lot of the material in flax and garlic and onion, you can't digest. Really? Sweet. You cannot digest that, and the bacteria takes care of it for you, but they also serve as this fibrous substance that helps you move your bowels, moves the stool, right? Keeps it going. So they make these wonderful fatty acids, which are essential for energy, for production of energy, for cell membranes, for lots of things. Housekeeping, we need what we call fatty acids, short-chain fatty acids, SCFA. If you ever see SCFA, that's what it means, short-chain fatty acids, and we need them. Okay, so we have trillions, and they're making fatty acids, they're making vitamins. Do you know what vitamins are being made? No clue. Not a clue. Some B12, little bits. We used to make a lot of B12 way, way back, but we've evolved and that kind of got screwed up. The human organism cannot make a vitamin which is essential, absolutely essential. There's one vitamin that I'm thinking of. Can anybody think with me? Vitamin C. Vitamin C. We make vitamin D, yes, yes. But vitamin C we cannot make. We must take that in, and that is so important. We even infuse it here. Vitamin K, very, very important vitamin in blood clotting and so forth, so we need vitamin K. And when people take antibiotics, vitamin K is reduced considerably. So you just affect the bacteria they cannot make, and of course they can't, though, if they're so affected, the short chain fatty acids get affected and all that. So you're disrupting their work when you take antibiotics. Again, if it's a life-saving need, it's one thing. If it's antibiotics that are kind of taken indiscriminately or you really don't need them, that's why I look at these things very carefully, and if I don't need to prescribe antibiotics, then we don't go there. We can change your microbiome and turn your infections around in different ways. So antibiotics we have to use with utmost care, because as a result of the overprescription or overuse of antibiotics, we have antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and they are strong, and they cannot be wiped out. And so it becomes a deadly situation. You know, the bacteria are very strong, they're very smart, and they know how to survive. But anyhow, we do these things, and we see the unfortunate, devastating effects. So, probiotics, I just want to bring that up. We hear about probiotics. We don't call our bacteria probiotics. These are our microbiota. So probiotics generally is a term that is used for the supplementals that we use. Like when you take in pills, probiotic pills, you take in the little bacteria in the pills, or you're taking them in food form, we call that probiotics. Okay, so let's look at how this is all working. We have over 1,000 different species in the microbiota, but they're predominantly less than 200 in the gut. And they survive on those prebiotics, like I was saying. They don't eat your pasta and tomato sauce. No, that's not their diet. They eat good stuff. Good stuff that doesn't put on weight, that's kind of stinky, bitter. When you try to eat a raw garlic. I find it very, uplifting. If you want to wake up, just put a piece of raw garlic in your mouth. Anyhow, so these are the things that they like, and then their genetic coding is like massively exceeding ours, and they give us enzymes that break down all these things that I'm talking about, the carbohydrates in food, and indigestible fibers, and they break down potentially toxic food compounds. So the organisms and our liver are just like working constantly to break down and either, just bring toxic things down to forms where they can be properly removed from the body, either through the urine, feces, or sweat, breath. And as I've said, these are the things that they do. Cancer prevention. It's a big topic. Lots of material coming out on cancer prevention, the absence of good bacteria leads the way or opens the door for cancer cells, mutations in the body. So we want to have those bacteria to protect us against that dreaded cancer stuff, right? And generally infections. We want bacteria and even viruses there to protect us against infections. Sounds kind of counterintuitive. We're infected by those things, but they're protecting us against. Well, it's the good stuff, the good bacteria and the good microbes that are protecting us against any pathogenic bacteria, which can form and come from the outside. They can form inside if they are they're exposed to a lot of toxic material. So it's like the bacteria transform and become monsters. And then you have illness. Whether it can be in different forms. You start having fever, you have diarrhea, all kinds of weird things happen to your abdomen, and then it just gets worse from there. So, God bless you. So if your brains are not in order, you don't feel well, you're depressed, you're having a bad time with your mother's brother, son, whomever, your husband, your wife, you're going to disrupt the bacteria in your gut. There is a brain-gut relationship, very much so. We have a lot of evidence about that because, again, they've studied the components of the gut, the bacteria, seeing what is disrupted, what pathogens grow, or the lack of certain pathogens in mental disturbances. The lack of good bacteria, pathogens grow in disrupted mental state. So the way you think, the way you move around with your thought process, and or the energies around you, they can impact your gut microbiome. Food, lack of exercise, lack of everything, empty living, we should avoid. It's for our own good. It's for the good of the bacteria. So, what do we see? LBS means pounds. It's just an abbreviation for pounds. So that would be weight. Gaining weight. Having these other disturbing gastrointestinal conditions. And it starts there, and then it gets worse. So whatever happens in the gut, we develop these kind of things, and then that turns into something else. So we can have heart disease as a result of that, or liver disease, or pancreatic disease, diabetes, cancers, you name it. It starts in the gut. It starts in the gut and affects every part of our bodies. So I just want you to be aware of that, okay? So microbiome is really where we have to be thinking. We have to be thinking, how can I make my gut best? How can I make those little organisms the best I can for their sake, for my sake, okay? It has to be that you're thinking of the community garden, if you will. Your garden in here. It's made up of all of these. Soil bacteria, soil organisms, we don't have soil without them. We won't have growth of things without them, right? So your own body's garden should be your number one priority. How to take it, how to take care of it, how to tend it, put the right stuff into it. If you have a garden, you have a bed here, whatever, are you going to throw poison in it? I think that most people, unfortunately, are tending their gardens and to their gardens better than they are to their own internal gardens. It's just the way it is. I mean, think about what you do, right? Look at your homes and your gardens. They're probably all pristine. Everything's beautiful. You make sure you water the plants, put the little nutrients in there. Are you doing the same thing to your own garden? That is something you should be thinking prioritize. Garden. Okay. All right. I'm a big plant advocate, as most of you know. We are basically big plants, when you think about it. We have all kinds of branches growing in every direction. So we require plants. We cannot live by meat alone. I don't eat meat. I am a living example of you don't need meat to eat. And if we pay attention, we can see health without it failing. If you all thought about this for a minute, if you ate nothing but plants in all the diversities and everything that the earth has to offer, how bad would it be for you? It'd be good. It'd be good. You'd be doing yourself and the earth, the sky, the water, every inch of this planet, you'd be doing wonders for. And the problems we're seeing right now with the global mess and the environmental disruptions, and you name it, here, there, and everywhere, from down here to way up there, we're making a mess. And the mass production of meat, and the dairies, and these cow farms, and all these enclosed places, this is a mess. And we're not helping our bacterial colonies in our bodies. We are not. We're making a mess. They're getting stronger. All of these animals are being injected with antibiotics, whether you like to hear that or not. And that is getting into the bodies of humans who are consuming them and is creating what? Antibiotic resistance. So we take in this antibiotic-laden meat, and we have now our bacteria, which we're disrupting, and we're making them angry. How many people have thought about that lately? It's important to think. When you don't, you and I and the rest suffer. We suffer because we're not doing our part. If you insist on having your chicken, meat, milk, eggs every day, which some people do, it's like, they'll tell me what they eat, and it's just like, okay, you just stabbed me I don't know how many times. You just said to me, you don't really care. I'm being honest. You don't care about you or me or anybody around here, if that's what you do. Do you know what you're taking in, how it's affecting you and me and all the rest? You're breathing out, exchanging air with me. I'm exchanging air with somebody who doesn't really care. We've got to think. Now, if you want to have some meat every now and then, or you want to have your poultry every now and then, that's your choice. But you got to think about what it is you're taking in, and really why. We can survive on plants. And again, this is not a pitch to say, I want everyone to be a plant eater like me. It's just something that you need to think about. The more plants you eat, the less meat you eat, the better. The less you buy at the store, and you start telling these store people, these retail people, the dairy industry, the milk industry, meat industry, I don't want this stuff. Stop making it. We have to be the ones who show them that we don't need it, because it's killing us and everything around us. Because as it is, the entire landscape in this country, for farming, for cattle, they've taken everything down. All the crops that are being used for livestock are genetically modified corn and soy for the most part, and alfalfa, genetically modified. That's what these things are being fed, in addition to receiving all the chemicals that they just douse on, pesticide, all the cidal things. And you have that plus the genetically modified antibiotics that are going to go in there undoubtedly. And how much water it takes to make these meats, to make all that meat. 1 pound of meat. Does anybody know how much water it takes to make 1 pound of meat? Lou? 10,000 gallons. Okay, the numbers are staggering. That's all I can say. It's just they're staggering, and we need to know. We need to start thinking. It's not good. And it's getting worse because of the mass production. Mass production doesn't stop. We're on this feeding frenzy of people. People need to stop eating. We all need to stop eating for like half a year. Not really. We'd be very much alive. And what I mean by that is, eating the way we're eating is wrong. It's totally wrong. I'm saying in general. If you have a wonderful appetite and you eat plants and you're eating reasonable meat, and so if you're respecting it and you're doing things in a way that is not considered gluttony and slob, like a slob and all that, and you protect your grass and you help out with the community, that's different. But how many people are going to the drive-in or going to drive up to buy their food? I don't know what you think about that, but that's shameful. That's shameful that people cannot go home and make their food. Have to go to drive up. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Anyhow. All right. So we have, again, all these nice things that the biome does for us. So here are some nice things that you should know about and should consume on a regular basis. How many here eat miso soup? Good. Hopefully, hopefully that number will, next time I see you all, you'll all be raising your hands and telling me. How many use kombucha? I just happen to have these things here. This is 221 BC. I like this one. Lavender moringa, woman-owned, organic, really nice. Little bits, I sip it here and there. And this has cultures in it. This has bacterial cultures, and it's very pleasant. I don't know if you like lavender moringa, but I find it very pleasant. I'm sorry, I'm not going to hand it all out. I don't know if you want it from my bottle. But then here's another one. Synergy. This one is Ginger Aid, which is full of bacterial colonies, and of course it has ginger, cold-pressed ginger juice, and kombucha. This is great. This is better than soda. Okay, and when you take kombucha, if you do, try to get low sugar. And again, one bottle may contain like 12 grams, so have small bits of it. That will never hurt you. Sauerkraut, kimchi, I eat this every day. I'm having one of these or more. And it really works wonders. And if anybody else can attest to that, there's nothing like having fermented foods. This is a tradition in most cultures, tradition to have foods that have been fermented. They did it in the past because of lack of refrigeration and other like preserving type thing. It's a preserving method, but it's so good for us. It's like eating the dirt in a different way. It's tastier. Yogurts, I preferably use plants. Again, the dairy industry, sorry to say, is not high on my list. Shouldn't be high on anyone's list, not this day and age, because it has been contaminated, corrupted, you name it. What they've done to cows, that which comes out of the cows, the ruination of the milk, it's not worth it. I mean, unless you have your own cow, you milk it, you take your own, that's another story. But I cannot advocate for the dairy industry, and I won't. So the yogurt made from plants, you can, they have cultures in there, and then you can add some nice things in, flax and little fruits. It's really delicious. And kefir you can make with water, and that's fine too. A lot of cultures like kefir. Okay, so what alters the microbiome? Too many things. But antibiotics, I mean, I can't say enough about how ruinous the antibiotics have been to our whole our lives. The living creatures in us have been so disrupted. And anybody here been on antibiotics again and again and again and again, right? And it happens to be, the cause for future conditions. So the sooner you can re-establish your microbiome with good bacteria, you'll have to repopulate and do it with those nice foods and probiotics. It has to be, because they are the defenders. And if we start taking away our defenses, they're very much part of the defenses that we have. Our Army, Navy, Marines, and all that. Those are our little microbiota. So this is what happens. You take these antibiotics, and it becomes drug resistance bacteria that will take over, and that becomes really messy, and they disrupt, and they become really troubling to our bodies. So not only antibiotics, just about every drug is affecting our microbiome negatively. And again, I can't go through every single drug, but these are some of the more commonly used, and we have found that proton pump inhibitors, which are, i.e., Nexium and Prilosec and all of the pantoprazols and some of the strongest inhibitors of acid. Most people don't have an acid problem. It's not a high acid problem, it's a low acid problem. We need to be putting those fermented foods and the good diversity of food into our bodies, plants I'm talking about mainly, and allow for that acid to properly be stimulated and available to us. What the processed foods do, the highly processed foods, all the junk foods that we eat, they disrupt our ability to secrete proper hydrochloric acid, stomach acids, peptic acids. And then we get this horrible feeling. And you go to your doctor. The doctor says, oh, you have reflux. Here's a PPI. Here's a proton pump inhibitor. Use it. And just keep using it. There are people who've been using it for 10 years. And what happens? You lose minerals. You lose B vitamins. You lose your gut lining. You end up with other conditions. You become osteoporotic. You have bones that start to break down. I mean, there's a whole host of stuff that's going to happen from those drugs. But we don't talk about it. Not supposed to talk about it. Just give you the drug and go home happily, see you next year. Again, there has to be these discussions on what to do, how to make your diet, turn your diet into something that will help you, that will prevent the reflux. Now, when somebody comes to me and they're on one of those drugs and they've been on for a while, it takes a while for me to get it off. We do, but it takes time, because those are meant for you to stay on. They become intolerable if you try to stop them. Anybody here, if you've ever experienced this, person who's been on something like a Prilosec, omeprazole, day after day after day, year after year, you try to come off of that, it's like fire and hell, and it's Hades comes, because you suppress so much the ability of your body to make the hydrogen ions, which are part of your stomach acids. And then you take that, it's like you take the cover off, and the fire is there, and then now it's going to come, and it's going to come like gangbusters. Your body is going to try to overproduce, so it becomes really uncomfortable. So as it is, the acids not being properly produced and secreted, you add something to it to suppress them more, and then you're on it for good. But yes, we can take it off, and yes, it can be all reversed. It just takes a little tweaking and takes a little education. That's all it takes. But it can be done. So no fears. Statins, antihistamines, all this other stuff, disruptions. They're disrupting. The microbiome is saying, what is this stuff that you're putting inside of me? What are you doing? I don't know what to do with this. and they just become more defensive, okay? And so you start to either lose them, or they might die off, you might kill them, or they become harder and more aggressive. You can have insulin resistance, which then leads to diabetes. Okay, there's a lot of disruptions in the metabolic processes when we put those drugs in our bodies. Statins can cause diabetes. You know, people don't know this. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And so these are things that you should be aware. Okay, so you might have heard that the gut, or the microbiome within the gut, is our second brain. Well, maybe it's the first. You know, what is it we say? You know, I had a gut feeling. My gut's telling me this. My gut's telling me that when it's talking to you, you better listen. Because usually, what happens? You agree with your gut after you've done the opposite. After you didn't listen, you did something else, and you should have done what you were feeling. You know, I should do this. I know I should do this. I know I need to punch him in the face. And I didn't, and he got away with it. All right, so you've got to understand that we have a gut-brain axis. The science is in. There is a complete connectivity between the little organisms and the brain via the vagus nerve. And there's secretion of messenger chemicals going back and forth. Now, you've all heard of serotonin, right? Anybody not hear of serotonin? This is kind of that happy hormone that we talk about. It's made predominantly in the gut. In the gut. So, so if we don't have the right bacteria, or the bacteria aren't right, both of those things true, and relevant, we have a problem. We have a problem here, and then, so the transmission of serotonin is not really being made, and the brain is not happy. So if you want a happy brain and you want to have yourself feeling nice, calm, relaxed, full of joy, this kid is totally in bliss. He's got a what is that thing? A Batman? Spider-Man. Oh my goodness. He's so cute. I just love it. And so if you have, I just lost my train of thought. Jeez, this kid is just... Well, the child is the example of the joy you're talking about. Yeah, the serotonin. Right, thank you. So if we don't have that, what do we have? Feel like crap, depressed, lousy, this, that. So what does your doctor give you when you come in looking like, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I don't feel good, I'm crying all the time? Antidepressants. And what category of antidepressants do we usually have? The SSRI, right? You've heard of that. The serum serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So we want to enhance our serotonin. But at what cost? There's a big price to be paid. So you end up totally addicted to these medicines. They can cause various other problems. Again, I'm not going to be talking about antidepressants tonight, but I'm going to mention it. You don't really want to be on a serotonin reuptake inhibitor for a number of reasons. One of those drugs has a chemical in them on the periodic table of elements. It is in the class of the halogens. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Fluorine, that's right, fluorine. Fluorine is on your table of elements, right? Does anybody remember this from chemistry? What other halogens do we have? We have fluorine, iodine, chlorine, bromine, right? The only one out of those four that we need is iodine. So now I want you thinking here. All right, we have a periodic table of elements. I'm sure you've seen it somewhere in your high school years and all that. Okay, so there are a host of elements, right? Hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, all of our minerals, you name it. And then you got uranium and radon and all that. They're all on that table. Okay, so we need iodine. We don't need chlorine. We don't need bromine. And we don't need fluorine. And fluorine is a component of one of the most popular antidepressants. Anybody know what that is? Prozac. Prozac. You've heard of it, right? Fluorinated compound. What does that mean? Does anybody know what fluorine does to the brain? Okay. Does anybody recall Nazi Germany? I know you were all there, right? What happened to those people who were taken to concentration camps? They were given this element, fluorine, and it made them very passive. It pretty much dulled their brains. That is what's in Prozac. And if you think that stuff is not harming the body. Now, again, we remember Columbine? I'm bringing back all kinds of weird things right now, I know. The whole shootout. The shooter, but that's just, it's just one example. Someone who stopped taking Prozac. He went nuts.
Almost every shooter was on or is on at the time of the shooting.
That's correct.
Almost universal.
Correct. All right, so I want you just to keep that in mind. Fluorine in drugs. Every day, taking drugs. The quinolone antibiotics. The fluoroquinolones. The word fluoro means fluorine. Nice, isn't it? Not too good. No, it's not good. So if we use these things and they get inside of us, we disrupt the bacteria. They cannot do that communication with the brain. And if you give fluorine product, you're dulling the head, the brain, the cells. So, and people who are on this type of substance will tell me, I have no emotion. I can't cry. I don't cry. It pretty much shuts it off. Right? I just want you all to hear that this is not, something that's just made up, or it's just maybe you see it yourself or you've used these products before. This is real. And it's going on, and doctors are prescribing these things. And I don't know where this is all going to go if it keeps going. All right, so I'm obviously not an advocate of any of that. So we have other ways of dealing with depression. And again, the first thing we have to look at is your microbiome. What are you eating? Perhaps I do a stool culture. Here, we have stool kits, and when you see Mary, she's all too happy, willing, and ready to give you a stool kit. And you take it home, and you poop, and you do this and that, and you smudge it on, and you send it out, and we can get kind of a comprehensive look at your stool and see what you're lacking or what you have too much of, if you have pathogens, if you have yeast, if you have this, if you have that. You might find a few gold coins in there. I don't know. So we can study the stool. If you go to a primary care physician in a managed care setting, which most people are, especially if you're a senior, you will not get any of that. The only time your stool will be examined is if you have diarrhea, and it's unrelenting, and they'll send off a bit of your loose stool. If you have any form stool, it's not going anywhere, as opposed to this type of testing that we can send out. You take your form stool, and they look at your form stool, right? They don't want your diarrhea. But in a conventional office setting, if you have diarrhea and they want to study it, it's just sent off in a little cup. It has to be liquid. And we look for ova and parasites and any bacteria. So eggs, parasites, which would be worms, and bacteria. And if they don't see any predominant anything, it'll just come back negative. That'll be the answer. You have nothing in your stool, which is, that's a total line of crap if I ever heard one. Nothing in your stool. Really? So if you want a stool test, you should, I mean, you can do them on your own. You can order them if you want. I believe online you can get these kits. Here, if I do an evaluation, you know, and you're having issues, we can do a stool test. We can give you it. You do it in the privacy of your home. You send it out. Anyhow, so the second brain, going back to this, there's that constant communication. And we have there's messengers and all kinds of stuff going back and forth. It is really there, and it's undeniable, unrefutable. We know there is a connection. So people who are depressed have very low counts of good bacteria in their gut. There is no question. Schizophrenia, even wilder. People who just have a lot of brain disruptions. ADHD, totally off. The microbiota are totally off in ADHD, which is now more common than ever. People who are vaccinated have microbiota that are completely off. So, yeah, it's nothing short of spectacular, folks. Nothing short of spectacular. And the talking back and forth is very rapid. Okay, so how do we improve it? You can take all of this and take pictures and whatever. So, processed foods. When we talk about processed foods, now there's a whole spectrum, right? You have lightly processed, moderately processed, highly processed, ultra highly processed. Okay, those things that are lightly processed, that's where you go to your store and there's fruit and vegetables and all that. I mean, they clean it, the debris is taken off, they put it in a bag, or they're loose. So that's the lightly processed type stuff. I'll go right to the ultra processed. That would be something that was completely turned into some other creature, from being a whole food into some other monster. So if it were an apple, now it's a powder, and it's got other things added to it. That is ultra processed. Crackers, Ritz crackers. Ritz crackers are like devils, little circular devils. I know everybody's eaten them. I know you have. But they are truly nightmarish on the gut. So don't do Ritz crackers. And there's so many others. Cereals and other kind of condiments and things like that have so much junk in them. They're totally and completely processed, highly processed. They literally shred the whole food, and from there it's just all downhill. Everything is removed. Everything is separated. An oil. A lot of these oils. This is just a highly processed food. Like one of the most common oils that's used in restaurants, soy, or corn, or grapeseed. They're cheap. They're genetically modified, from genetically modified soybeans. And by the way, folks, don't ever think for 1 minute that soy is a bad food or food that causes cancer. That has been completely debunked. That is absolutely incorrect, false. Soybeans are staple foods in many parts of the world, and cultures have grown on soybeans. And we have them here. You hear them as edamame. They are, if they are organic, better. If you get your tofu, which comes from the soybean, organic, good for you. Tempeh, which is a fermented soybean product, very good. That's the fermentation. It's like it's aged. It's like aged cheese. But I'd rather aged tofu than aged cheese any day. So you want to look at the soybean. But going back to the oil, what happens? They extract the oil from the soybean. Now, a soybean has very little oil in it. And it's all mixed in there, so it's not an effect on you. It won't have a negative effect. If it's extracted from the soybean, that's like taking it out and making a drug. It's like any oil it's taken out of a vegetable or plant. It's extracted, so it's got medicinal properties, and they could be very damaging to you as well. I mean, a coconut oil, purely beneficial. Soy oil, purely devastating. Difference is like remarkable. So when something is extracted, you're taking an element out of that which has really on its own no benefit. It's just an oil. It's got fat and it can cause all kinds of havoc. Soy oil is not good. It has what's called omega-6 fat, which the predominant omega-6 is linoleic acid, and it's pretty damn inflammatory. Not good for your body, and people are eating it by the tons. Linoleic acid, pro-inflammatory. It's an omega-6 fat. Anybody know what other food that is eaten to a huge extent that is causing a lot of omega-6 inflammation in the body? It's not an oil. Anybody? It's a bird. Chicken. Mm-hmm. Chickens in large farming, mass production, are fed genetically modified grains. And what does that create? Omega-6 fats. So in the muscle of the chicken, your breasts, your whatever parts you eat, will be containing omega-6. And if you eat chicken twice a day, 3 times a day, every day, you're talking a lot of trouble. And sowing the seeds for trouble. Here and there, and whenever it'll come. It will not be good. So think about that. So again, not only food, but the things around your house, the chemicals you use, the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi and all that stuff, I just dislike this, but it is here. How do you mitigate it, modify it? You need to know that. You need to know how to mitigate. So using less of them, turning it off, putting your phone in airplane mode, being conscious of these conditions around you. You know, how much Wi-Fi are you exposed to? Do you work all around Wi-Fi all day long? Do you go home to Wi-Fi? Do you use ear pods, or whatever they're called, AirPods, ePods, Bluetooth? Strange names, but they're all there, and they're going right into your brain, affecting your brain, right? The brains of the operation are really being affected, very much so. So Wi-Fi, frequencies, everything has frequency, but when you're talking about sheer frequency, like a force, electromagnetic force that's coming at you, like a cell phone or a laptop or something in your ears, it's blasting you. Food has frequency. If it's a good food, it has nice low frequency that blends well, resonates with the body. You got a cell phone in your hand, you put it over here, it's like, okay. Let me just make out my will right now. It's a disaster. We've got to understand these dangers. Wi-Fi is just another toxicant. Toxins and toxicants. A toxin would be a bad pathogenic type of organism, the bad bacteria, the parasites, and all that, toxins. Toxicants are pretty much everything else. Chemicals and all this other junk that we use every single day. Pay attention to your environment outside, which will save your environment inside. I think I am done. Now, yeah, on this, yeah, I know, you're right. I have it right here, and I want to talk to you about that. Okay, so this is just an advertisement for our cafe, and these are just some references I have here for you. Okay, so you may have that little piece of paper in your hand, because I didn't include it on the thing because I had done this some time ago. But when you go to select a probiotic, really look at what you're picking up. Don't just pick up anything that's on sale. You need to have multiple strains on this item. And we have, oh, great, I'm breaking this whole thing. And we have the examples here. I have some samples. And these are what you should be looking for. And I'll be having more come in, because I've asked Tammy, our retail manager, to bring in more of these probiotics. You find them in your health food stores. You will find things in the drugstore and pharmacies. But the pharmacies may not have what you're really needing. A lot of these pharmacies carry very, inexpensive brands. You get what you pay for. There are different brands, and I've indicated some of the better brands. When you open these things up, if they're on the shelf, most of them now that you get can withstand shelves, non-refrigerated. They're on the shelf, you pick them up, and some are in the refrigerator already. We do recommend that you put them in the fridge. If you open it, put it in the fridge, because you want to really keep the bacteria that are there. A lot of them die off in these capsules and in these boxes and so forth. So try to keep them in at least a cool place or refrigerate them. You want to see things on the label like lactobacillus, acidophilus, rhamnosus, and all that. I mean, you can come up and look at this, and again, they're very cumbersome. I'm not here to try to teach you every single name, but the more strains you have, the variety, the better. But some of them have a lot, and I caution you on that. If your gut is not doing very well, you don't want to take too many strains. Like if something has like 24 different things itemized, it's a lot. So if you have about 8 or 10, like this one here is the Super 8 high potency. These are the most common, and this is a reasonable product. So there are 6 lactobacillus types. Acidophilus, rhamnosus, these are very good for your genital urinary tract, your all of your gut, and we have here bifidobacteria as well. So remember, the bifidobacteria, you want to see that in your probiotic. Lactobacillus acidophilus, bifidobacterium, bifidum, or longum. They're here if you want to take a look. This is the Flora brand. We have Renew Life. There are Physician's Choice, pure encapsulations. I'm going to have the pure encapsulations available soon. They're nice. They don't have these added ingredients. Some of them have too many other added ingredients. This one here, the O'Hara's Probiotics, has both prebiotics and probiotics. Some of them have the prebiotics in them, which are the nice things that the probiotics or the bacteria in your gut like, the microbiota. And so this one actually has fermented prebiotics, probiotics, and there's even what we call postbiotics. They get ridiculous with this pre, post, and post. But they're here, there are a couple of them here, and you're looking for anywhere between 10 and 100 billion colony forming units per capsule. Each capsule, or maybe it calls for 2 capsules, will give you the dose. It could be 10 million, 20 billion, 30, 50, 80. If you have a serious condition, please consult with your health provider on this, because you may not be doing the right thing. You don't want to take too much if you are compromised, okay? It's too many bacteria. If you have some serious infection, or your immune system is altered, or if there's a cancer, you would need guidance. People have asked me about that, and I've helped them along. And that's pretty much it. Some of them are very expensive, like seed. Some people, they bring in this compound to me. Seed, yes.
Yeah, Dr. you might want to mention what the best time of day is, because there's a lot of discrepancies sometimes about.
Yeah, so some of them will call for eating with meals, with food, some without. Generally, the manufacturer will tell you the time to use it. Most of them you could use with meals. You know, it's not like you have to use it just before bed or as soon as you get up in the morning. You know, there are different timings, and again, most of them are okay with meals. They don't have to be on an empty stomach. But if it does call for, just please pay attention to that. How do you know? I'm sorry?
What would be the signs that you
Need a supplement? Okay. Well, if you are, you know, pretty bad with your food, you're not eating these cultured foods, you're, you know, you just you have a distaste for them. There are people who just don't do that, or they're poor eaters. A lot of reasons, or if you are having a gastric distressful process go on, gastritis, belching, burping, and all that, that's a time when we would probably advocate using something like a probiotic to help you out. Because most people, when they start having all these symptoms, I know that they're not eating right. And, you know, if I say, okay, use fermented foods, and they say, you know, I don't like it, I hear that all the time. Then there's a probiotic. And you can use it, and you don't have to use it every day of your life. You can use it for a period of time, generally a couple of weeks, to kind of get over the distress, the bloating, the gas, the this and that you're experiencing. And then you can use them intermittently. If you're eating properly, you won't have to use them. You know, so they're available for the most part for people who are really bad at eating what they should, and or if they're having some gastric kind of situation. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
You were saying that the range should be in the billions.
Billions.
The sheet here says 10 million to 100 million.
I'm sorry. You're right. It should be billion. That's right. You're absolutely right. That's a typo or whatever. That's a billions. You're right. I'm glad you pointed that out. See that? You got to correct me when I'm wrong. Okay. So I'm sorry, that's a typo. A million is actually it's very small. So if something says 10 million on it, it's a small amount. So they are in the billions. Yeah. So the colony forming units here, it'll say billions on the bottle. I'm sorry, that is my mistake. You're absolutely right.
And is it safe to take biotics while you're on an antibiotic?
Okay, so if you're on an antibiotic, yeah, you can take the probiotics as well. Yes.
Probiotic.
Yeah. Yes.
And would you alternate it as far, let's say I'm
Yeah.
taking the antibiotic every
Yes.
12 hours or whatever?
Yes, you would definitely.
Like 6-hour intervals in between?
Yes, you can take the. Yeah, you give it some time before you take the probiotic. Absolutely. Yeah. Taking them together, there can be some clashing there. So we generally would guide you on that. If somebody's on an antibiotic, I would tell you just how to do that. Yeah. You take it separately. Any other questions? Yeah.
I asked in the hospital, I said, I want some probiotics, and they're so behind the times. All that, when I read the pill, it was just strictly acidophilus, which is most doctors,
Yep, yep,
conventional doctors,
yep.
just subscribe that, and it was only like 1 billion. It was just plain acidophilus. I didn't even bother taking it. I said, this is not gonna do nothing. And when I came home, I hit it with 100 billion for several months afterwards. But I found if I take, it has the opposite effect. If I take them for short bursts of time, they're beneficial. If I stay on them, I start getting more gas, bloating, bathroom problems. So I think what you said is the better way to, if you're on antibiotic, definitely hit it for a few months afterwards, and then periodic.
Yeah, you don't need to take them continuously again because you'll start building your own as you you go along with your food product, and you don't need to keep dousing yourself with more and more and more on a continuous basis. It's not really recommended. So, periodically, you might feel like, oh, I think I need it. I'm going on a trip. Maybe you're traveling and so forth. It's good to take it with you if you're going on trips because traveler's diarrhea is a problem, and there are certain ones that are better than others for it. So, like we try to guide you in that way. Yeah. Anything else? Yes. Bacterial overgrowth, like SIBO. When it comes to like supplementing, not really. Right, bacterial overgrowth. Right. Yeah. So that's going to be gas, satiety, early satiety, foul-smelling gas, burping, belching. Abdominal distress. No matter what you eat, it doesn't agree with you. There's a lot of things because now you're talking about like leaking and all kinds of toxins that are coming out into your bloodstream, and you're feeling lousy. I mean, it's an overall disaster. Usually, that comes from very poor eating habits, a lot of gluten, lots of fast foods, just careless smoking, just anything that's polluting the body. It's creating all this, just a setup for pathogenic growth and really inability to digest the food. You just ruin it all. So fortunately, most people don't have that. I'm not seeing it as I see here. I'm not seeing that very much, but I do have it here and there. And it could be corrected. It just takes time. Yeah, for us to clean. It's really a cleanup and putting the right stuff back in. Okay, Mary, anybody want to come up? I am going to have to exit in a moment. I have another appointment coming. It's so cute. What is the baby's name? Wesley. Oh, God, how cute you are. Look at that baby. All righty, well, thank you very much for your attendance and attention. Thank you. And we have Diane and Mary here to talk to you a little bit about what's going on and what's coming up.
Yeah, let Mary talk about, I probably really don't need that with my big mouth. Can you all hear me? I'm pretty loud. So I really just want to give you a little information on what's going on, what's coming up. Actually, we don't have a whole lot going on in June, but I wanted to make sure that you all know to get a copy of our calendar. For those of you that are pretty new, we publish this every single month. So the May has just come out. We're already working on June, and it's a key. We have a lot of brochures and a lot of flyers in our lobby. But if you have this, it's kind of like the general consensus of everything we have. The color part on the left is always the classes, all the classes that we have in our studio. including all the yoga, the meditation, the dance classes, the Tai Chi, and it'll give you the days, the times, and the instructors. So you can always be sure to look on that left side, whatever color it is that month. And then all the rest of it is actually just everything else that's going to be going on at the center, you know, whether it's talks or whatever. So you can still hear me, right? Yeah. I don't need it. So every month, Dr. Maria and I actually alternate weeks, months, I